Hello, good morning. Welcome to Sunrise today. I'm Chamberlain. So,
Amaya Makide, good morning and welcome. It is a Thursday morning and it is the 12th day in the month of October. Yesterday, it was the whole world was celebrating the International Day of the Girl Child. And trust me, I had quite the anthem from my little girl, and they of course, it's fun for them. Another issue that came up was one of our colleagues, Chamberlain, who was saying that, look, that there was this, back and forth at home that, hey, how come they celebrate girls more than they celebrate boys? I mean, it was her boys that were asking that question. But for me, I think, first of all, it is something that we need to give attention to, because over time, we take for granted that, hey, they're just children. But in our part of the world, we know, being a patriarchal society, there's always that attention a lot more on the male gender as opposed to the female gender. But there are so many peculiarities with them. For instance, in Nasarawa State, pharmacists, in their own celebration of the International Day of the Girl Child, advocate an end to rape in Nasarawa State. That is one. Another thing that's been prominent over time is what a good number of people now call period poverty, which has also gotten the attention of the United Nations. And that's why you see some celebrities and some civil society organizations go out and give monthly cycle pads to young girls in schools in different parts of the world. It's amazing, actually, that something as basic as that, the health of the little ones, the young ladies, is so minimally, given such minimal attention. I was shocked to find out that a good number of people are giving period poverty attention, and they have to be giving sanitary pads out to these young ladies in schools in different parts of the nation, especially in parts of the north. Trust me, it's all over the place. So those are just two of the issues. And come on, how many others can we talk about? Not too long ago, the video made the rounds of a young lady who was married off early, perhaps in her teenage. I'm not sure which state again. And she ran back to her parents' house. And guess what? All the men, much older men in the environment, came out and they were flogging this lady for coming back home as opposed to staying back with her husband. Why was she coming back home? Because she wanted to go to school. And I'm hoping that, the conversation will not just stop at that. It'll actually help us to galvanize all of the issues, because in celebrating the International Girl Child Day as well, the First Lady, Senator Oluremi Tinubu, spoke to this particular issue of education while she was talking about invest in girls' rights, our leadership, and our well-being. Part of what she said was that it is disheartening to acknowledge that many Nigerian girls still face discrimination, violence, and limited access to education and healthcare. We must confront these issues by striving for a better and more equitable future for our daughters. And while we're giving attention to the girl child, amazing as it is, let us not also forget that if we do not take care and give attention to the boys, they are coming. It's these same girls that we're giving attention to that are going to be married to these girls, and only God knows what is going to happen. So beyond the legislation, beyond the euphoria of the day, beyond the annual celebration and annual attention given to this, please, let us not forget that it's just one day to give attention, but a whole year we have to accumulate and to report on the activities and the things that we have done to give attention to the girl child in the year before. And then we can celebrate this year and chart a new agenda. What do you think, Chamberlain?
We have an idea of what was likely going to happen. God has a big picture, but we do have an idea. So the thing is this. Now, this one day that we earmark to celebrate, commemorate, whatever you want to call it, some of these significant days, good, but not good enough. If you look at it from the big picture, the context of the whole, not the context of the immediate setting. Because the thing is, look, the population of Nigeria, as you could find out there, just a simple search will show you, we're estimated to increase from 206 million people in 2020 to 263 million in 2030, 401 million in 2050, and a massive 733 million in 2050. Wow, that is huge. Already we're grappling with it. I mean, you hear them talk about 200, 218 million. That's huge. And so I like to look at it from the perspective of education. And we've talked about 10% of the curriculum we have in different schools that will be obsolete in the next decade. Already is catching up with us. It's creeping in faster than we even thought. Because according to analysis of 750 occupations by McKinsey Global Institute, it says that 51% of job activities are highly susceptible to automation. Now, and that's through adapting, currently through demonstrated technology alone. So, education, both for the girl child, the larger population, we all need it. It shouldn't be considered as an abstract when some of these things are said. We also do require huge, very, very significant, well-targeted enabling laws. I know they'll remind us we have certain laws. It's time we have a proper look at some of these things, because if we do not, look, it shouldn't always sound as though whatever we're saying here is just being academic. Look, it has to, we have to individualize some of these things. Our personal recognition system has got to kick in, because if we do not, so you can imagine if several other people have huge technical other skills apart from the, we pay a lot of attention to paper qualification. Go by itself, but you know that if you do not acquire those skills, what kind of future do we hold? So we all need to just pull together and see how much of impact can we get. So, yes, indeed, we have a huge resource. It's not just in a number. If we can make use of or leverage on the kind of numbers that we do have, strength in numbers. That's what they say. And then we always like to talk about diversity, strength in diversity. It will just be a textbook talk if we do not actualize and practicalize deliberately all of these things. We really need to do a lot of things, because we all will be happy for it at the end of the day if that counts for something. So I think I just thought it was, kind of significant to just chip that in as we focus on the girl child, use that window of opportunity and see how we could, culture, look, your mind is only what you make of it. If you put limitations there, then you will be limited. So you just, your mind over it, and then see your body will follow. And we approach principles and policies and governance that way. 2 cents. Okay, so let's take you through. Yeah, do you want to say something?
Yeah. It's a huge one. I mean, talking about the stats that you talked about, and then the culture you just spaded over. I think it's a huge issue in this girl-child conversation, and it's that aspect. You remember our conversation with Samademi? Culture is it's at the kernel. It's at the crux of everything. So. Beyond the legislation, that's why we mentioned it earlier, beyond the legislation, beyond the attention we give on this one day, which, as you said, is not good enough, and I agree, what are we doing the whole year round? So what's the plan for the next 1 year before the next October 11 International Day of the Girl Child? Can any state governor give us an idea? Can the National Assembly, state houses of assembly, local government chairman, councillors give us an idea what to expect? Can civil society organizations, can traditional rulers, can religious leaders give us an idea of what to expect within the next 1 year before October 11, 2024? Then we can give a report of what we have done the whole length of the year. So, Chamberlain, I'm with you on that.
Yeah, that's why sometimes when we listen to key government officials talk about their plans, their policies, as good as they all sound, then we often wonder when their ministries, the agencies that they're all supposed to work with, will they be on the same page all through the period, that those ministers will be on that position? Or, so several questions. And then if you go to other people who are supposed to make it happen, how realistic? Do they actually see, understand, internalize those visions to the extent that it will not just be about what is in it for me? But that's a huge impediment.
Absolutely.
They keep looking at it from that prism. And we always say, look, many of them look at the world from a keyhole. No, see the big picture. Because if you don't, it will affect you if you don't. Okay, let's start with New Telegraph as we take you through some of the dailies here this morning. IMF to Nigeria. Stop CBN's budget deficit financing. Says exemptions costing Nigeria. Others, 5% tax to GDP. World Bank president advocates increased intra-Africa trade. We've been talking about this increased Africa trade for a very long time. And I think it's instructive to note that some of the African leaders actually, they seem to be enthused about it. They seem to be taking some key steps as to trying to propagate, to preach narratives as to, look, we have to unite, take away all those walls, no more walls. Why should you require a visa to come here? We've got after. What are we doing about strengthening all of those? Why should it cost a lot more to move from one part of Africa to the other end of Africa? Yet it's a lot easier to move from one part of Africa to Europe, for instance, and sometimes you have to go to Europe to get to another part of Africa. You need to wake up and smell the coffee. And so that's why populations are restless. And so, of course, if you have a lot of young people, it's a global village now. So what you thought that it's limited, that's why when they talk about culture, some of these things are drastically changing. And people should wake up and smell the coffee. Borders are no longer these physical, geographical lines. They're blurred now. Way becoming blurred. Just, you know, it's all out there, really. But how much of that can we even preach? But, yeah, let's see. What else can we highlight here? Pension. Unemployed contributors denied access to mandatory 25% benefit. Why is this the case? I think they highlighted here. So if somebody's listening, they've got to address it. So, that's New Telegraph this morning.
At the front page of the Daily Independent newspaper this morning, I don't know what you will make of it, but hey, it is right there on the front page of Daily Independent. ASU opposes private varsities getting FG intervention fund. That's their, primary perspective this morning, primary interest this morning on the front page of the Daily Independent. What does that mean? Find the details. Do they have access to, is it the ITF? Well, find the details of that on the inside pages. And right below the picture, another picture on the front page, Tinubu's certificate saga has hurt Nigeria's image abroad. Tasks seem to come clean on his true identity. And there is a reply. President does not have identity problems, says APC. That story continues on the inside pages. There's this interesting story about MAN. MAN asks FG, MAN is Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, by the way, asks FG to overtake binding constraints limiting production. I don't know what that story means. You may want to get the details on page 25, but I beg your pardon, page 29. But if we do not do something about our capacity to produce, as that book said, and I think one of the presidential candidates talked about, from consumption to production, it is indeed limiting, and we may not be able to get out of the doldrum the way we have in mind. Well, for those who are wondering what's happening in Lagos, particularly along the Lekki axis, Lagos begins demolition of buildings on drainage setbacks in Lekki. The story is on page 6. Find the details right there. Above the nameplate, no evidence. Tinubu forged Chicago State University record. That's according to the BBC. What does that mean? The details are on the inside pages. Umahi warns contractors sabotaging concrete road design, gives them 14 days to mobilize to site or face the axe. And of late, Chamberlain, the axe from engineer Dave Umahi, the Minister of Works, has been quite frequently coming down. That's the Daily Independent this morning.
Okay. Let's take a look at Vanguard newspaper here. APC, Obi at war. over Tinubu as LP presidential candidates asks Tinubu to answer 14 questions. So there's a typo here. The president is supposed to be presidential candidate. Says Nigerians deserve the truth about president's true identity. Notes Nigeria now considered nation of certificate forgers, fraudsters. President has no identity crisis. Obi acting article script. APC. No evidence. Tinubu forged certificate is submitted to INEC. Described to BBC. BBC report, a hatchet job. Jaundiced. Described to article. So. Oh boy. I mean, well, this matter is supposed to be. Supreme Court will eventually rule on this matter, but of course, you know how very invested several other people are on this matter here today. But just beneath that one, oh yeah, but this, above this latest story, former governors, ex-ministers, others under investigation ascribed to the EFCC. So you might want to go there and see who are those people. And they're usually under investigation, and what becomes of all of that, I'll let you go ahead and do that. Inflation. Protect poor people from high energy prices. IMF to FG. Does it mean that average people could go face it, carry your cross? Okay. Look, some of these policies, they still need the middle class. Do we still have them anyways? How much of them do we have? Are they being eroded so fast? Because they still have to be the fulcrum, or quote-unquote the poor people, to leverage on. So sometimes these policies cannot be executed in strict isolation. So, yeah. FG bans contractors with ongoing projects from fresh bait. Don't be greedy. Perhaps that's what the message is saying here. Southeast zone crucial to Nigeria's development, ascribed to Tinubu. So maybe they might zero in there and talk about boosting the economy and how it then expands to the entire country. And then look at your Mr. and Mrs. here today. So Mr. says apparently haven't received a list from Mrs. So Mr. says, this list is padded. How did you arrive at such an outrageous amount? I have a good mind of cutting off 30% from it. Mrs. replies, okay. Have you seen a piece of meat reduced by 30% before? Maybe I might have, so he might have a better picture in terms of how that looks. He loves the meat a lot, so Ayo.
General Assembly of that home. So whether so I don't know what you make of that. The Guardian newspaper is next, and look at what you have right there, the lead story. It is very, very concerning, no doubt, what you have right there. FX, arbitrary rules leave telecoms to Big Four, cripple 568 firms. But that is not good news. What that sounds like, and it's something that I am very, very much interested in personally, is that over 568 local service providers go moribund in 5 years. That's one of the things that you have in the graphics right there on the front page of the Guardian newspaper. 568 local service providers go moribund in 5 years. What does that mean? That means loss of jobs, if we look at it. That means a more constrained telecom sector, or not. The details you'll find on the inside pages. Local content in telecom sector is 16%. This is something that the Minister of Communication, Industry, and Innovation and Digital Economy will have to speak to as well. Small players lament as MNOs get 86% of industry's revenue, and so many other issues right there on the front page of the paper. But believe me, it is a big issue. Among other stories on the front page, Lagos Blue Line goes electric, increases daily trips to 54. Please remind anyone who needs to know that once the Lagos Blue Line goes electric, it means the rail lines are more injurious, more hazardous, more dangerous. So please tell anyone who needs to know that we need to give due attention where they are needed. Politicians corner 70% recruitment into tertiary institutions. That's according to TED Fund. Okay, I wish we had an association of politicians of Nigeria. We would ask them to come and explain if this is indeed is true, but unfortunately, I don't think we do. That's the Guardian newspaper this morning.
And that is actually doing us more harm than good, because chances are that if you look deeper, it's political patronage. And perhaps if political patronage takes key consideration above all of these things, you'll find out that merit is relegated to the background. And when merit is relegated to the background, you could imagine what we will then take and why some of these challenges we face appear to be, just never ending.
Absolutely. So, very concerning.
I'll take a look at Daily Trust next then. Tinubu yet to reconvene FEC 44 days after inaugural meeting. Daily Trust reports this morning. Cancel meetings important to address current challenges. Described to the CSOs, Tinubu Shettima on 23-day foreign trips in September. President has different idea of FEC functions. Aid. Ministerial retreat delaying cabinet meeting. Ascribed to source. And so they're having a retreat, and so they're trying to probably put heads together, ensure that they're all on the same page. And the narrative. People always expect a lot from elected officials, especially when they have just been elected. And so, hence that off-the-shelf phraseology we always use, hit the ground running. We expect them to hit the ground running and do A, B, C, D, or E. But we also do know that when they're campaigning, they go promise you heaven and earth. And we often forget that the road to hell is, or heaven is, or hell is paved with good intentions, as they say. So, but we also do have our roles, all of us, to keep asking questions of these officials, because that is why they got there in the first place. So we all need to ensure that they live up to the billing. So it doesn't matter if they're offended when we ask them those questions. That's what we have to do. That's how societies are built. So checks and balances, those are the principles inherent in the democratic setting of dispensation body. Okay, this picture, of course, it's very, very concerning, and it should be to anyone, everyone who's anyone. Let me just read the caption here. Police displaying arms recovered from bandits, robbers, and other criminals in Abuja yesterday. That's how the paper so captions that one. So you could see men, women, girls involved here. Days are getting trickier, everyone. So look at the kind of weapons they wield. I know there will then be questions. Big how? How do these cops get access to this? How? Just how? And then equally concerning, over 600 died of diphtheria in 10 months. That is ascribed to the federal government. And the minister did say yesterday of health, these population were not vaccinated, who suffered some of these things, and the kind of attention. Lifestyle are also important, everyone. The way, and that's when they talk about culture, lifestyle, look, a lot. Well, I think the agencies know they need to leverage on several multimedia platforms to disseminate messages, get proper message design experts to design those messages and then get those messages scheduled and distributed to certain persons, because if they don't know, they'll keep falling prey to why these things happen. That's Daily Trust this morning.
And then that, that image is actually very, very concerning, and I think it should get the attention of the most important or the most relevant agencies of government. I'm almost certain that a good number of them, if you ask them, they would say that they don't want to do it, they just had to because of the economic challenges or pressures that they had. No excuse, there's no doubt about it. But then can we really mitigate such occurrences? Business Day newspaper has, among other stories, some of which we have talked about this morning, FGI's new tax reforms. Conservative oil benchmark. FGI's new tax reforms. Conservative oil benchmark. As you can see, conservative is in parentheses. Find out what that means. Nigeria, third most sought after for investments. That's according to the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy. Can you believe that? But well, that is attributed to him. Find the details continue on the inside pages. And the second writer, now chair of World Bank's Africa Governors Forum. Oh, really? Find the details again on the inside pages. And right beside the graphic on the front page, how Israel-Hamas war could affect Nigeria's economy. That is something that everyone would be interested in, so we don't cross lines that we don't need to cross. The story continues on page 21. Of course, you also saw the Obi asks Tinubu to reintroduce himself. APC hits back story. President has no identity problem, says party. That's Business Day newspaper this morning.
Done this, have we? Certificate saga, Atiku, Obi kick as BBC clears Tinubu of forgery. Okay. Well, you know, they're not the investigative body, they're not the court of law, so, but that's how it's captured here this morning. Look at the writers. BBC report, a hatchet job. PDP presidential candidate. Come clean on educational records, identity ascribed to Obi. And then the image you see there. Motorists queuing for petrol at Wuse Zone 1 NNPC filling station in Abuja yesterday. And you see this in a couple of other petrol stations in parts of the city. Who knows how it is in several other cities here. And that's what we also indicated yesterday. Look, the NNPC always has this narrative. They tell you, we've got enough in the locker, but why then do these things keep happening? What are they doing about it? They do have the NNDPRA, who was supposed to be regulatory bodies to get out there and ensure that motorists are not subjected to untold hardship or unnecessary time wasted. Look, time is money and time is spent. So if you spend a lot of time with these kind of things, you limit the amount of time you have for productivity. And then we're trying to see how we could kickstart the economy and ensure lots of things get going as quick, as fast as we can. We should have this mindset that we cannot afford to keep wasting time on such scenarios like this. And then they have several others here. Let's see, the diphtheria component we've spoken about it. FG warns state governments against interference in mining activities. It was just a couple of days ago. In fact, yesterday, some of the candidates of Ogi, they talk about mining, how they intend to leverage on mining. Yes, some did identify, actually, that it is under the purview of the federal government, but they intend to do something about it. So now, if FG is coming up with this warning, it does suggest that states might be doing something contrary to perhaps established laws. And if that is the case, shouldn't we have a conversation about what we need to do moving forward? I thought it's going to be, or it's supposed to be about collaboration, moving the country forward. And now we always remind ourselves how, I think Mr. Alder talked about, why don't we look at different parts of the country as economic zones? So if we look at the strength, economic powerhouse, whatever it is, what commodity, whatever it is the strength in any region, let's highlight it, focus on all of those. So if we channel attention there, you can then imagine the same kind of templates we had those days where regions compete, they were competing based on academics. If you have this university, then I come for something better. And that's how things grow, healthy competition, not necessarily taking advantage of our fault lines almost all the time when it's time for politicking, and thereafter we're left to ourselves. I think we have what it takes to actually move ourselves forward. And I'm talking about leapfrogging several other scenarios. I think we do have that. That's leadership here today.
And you know what you just said now,
okay.
Chamberlain? It just reminds me of, you know, something that you've often mentioned in private about Switzerland, their agreement. When you were talking about regionalizing our economy, it just sounds like you're talking about 6 vice presidents right there in my ears. You know, like, okay, let's have 6 vice presidents, one for each of the zones, and then they govern and then they report to the federal and all of that. But hey, I guess we'll see. Look at the Nigerian Tribune very, very quickly. Well, of course, a good number of the stories have been talked about, but there's an answer to the story you talked about, the fuel, why there is fuel scarcity. Marketers unable to load petroleum products. That's right above the nameplate of the Nigerian Tribune this morning. And marketers unable to load petroleum products is ascribed to IPMAN, 6 Joint Security Task Force to tackle crude oil theft. And that's on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune, among several other stories you'll find interesting. And the Nigerian Tribune brings us to a close of this segment of the program, which is a look at today's papers. We're back after now to take on the issues lined up. Do stay with us.
The attention of members of the House of Representatives turns to the state of the economy, with special consideration on the value of the Naira. Following a motion by Honorable Ismail Adabu, lawmakers debate the need for the Central Bank of Nigeria to address the impact of the failing Naira on the Nigerian economy.
Urge the Central Bank of Nigeria to implement monetary policy adjustment to stabilize the currency, address speculative activities in the forex market, and increase the withdrawal limit of Naira to reduce pressure on dollars and foreign currencies.
Today, if you want to travel out of this country, you are forced to pay in FX. You are forced to pay in dollars. You find out that they charge us equivalent of about 3-point-something million naira here to buy an economy ticket to travel to for a 6-hour flight. But those coming from the UK, for instance, Mr. Speaker, pay far, far less when they are paying in pound sterling.
Let's invite even the CBN governor, Minister of Finance, as a house. It is our responsibility to hold those that are driving these policies, to hold them to account that, look, let's see your policy document in respect to the economy. Because if we continue like that, tomorrow the dollar will be 1,500 and we'll just be smiling.
An amendment is made to the motion and adopted.
Urge the federal government to make a fundamental shift on governance approach that focuses on bloated cabinet structures, wasteful expenditure as a result of on-the-job consumption, oil theft, corruption, and forex speculations.
The House further mandated committees on banking regulations, national security and intelligence to interface with the Central Bank of Nigeria with the purpose of initiating compliance strategies, as well as investigate the use of US dollars and other foreign currencies as legal tender for domestic transactions in Nigeria. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
I'll see you
Okay, welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Yes, as you've seen, the Honorable Dennis Agbo joins us this morning as a member of the 10th House of Representatives. Good morning, and thank you for coming on today.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Well, of course, everyone is concerned about the value of our currency against several other currencies and how it impacts what we do here, inflation, and several other economic indices here which appear to be going south. They want them to arrest it, as a matter of fact. So that's why they were talking to CBN there. But so give us the background, because many will wonder, just the motion there clearly will not suffice. It's got to be much more than just moving the motion.
Yes, a motion will not suffice. We have to move from motion to action. We have to, it begins with a motion, which probably expresses the concern of the public, the concern of the Nigerian people who we represent the House of Representatives. So it comes by a motion to express the concern. Then it should draw everybody's attention to that critical issue so that people will start thinking along that line. For instance, what will become our emphasis? What will become the emphasis of government? What should become the intervention emphasis of representatives in their various constituencies? What should our budgeting priorities be? You know, this is the crux of the motion, to draw attention that the value of our local currency is actually going haywire.
So now that they want the CBN to come up with some of this monetary policy, do they have an expectation? Do they have specific areas that they're looking to see how they can intervene?
The motion merely urges the CBN, the authority charged with management of our monetary policy, to do something. Now, but just like I said, beyond the motion, we can also make concrete suggestions as to what, you know, the country should do. To me, we have arrived here in our exchange rate regime because of our failure to produce and our total or exclusive dependence on oil as our, they call it the mainstay of our economy, but it shouldn't become the only item that we can export. We can do more, we can produce more. Our economy is not productive, it's a consuming economy. It doesn't produce. We depend too much on the extractive resources, in this case, exclusively the oil. I am also going to say that, yes, we can put more things in the basket. One is the oil. Two are other extractive resources like the solid minerals. There's total absence of these solid minerals in the line of sight. We are not accounting for them. It is creating so much security issues, especially up north, in Niger, in Zamfara, in other states of this country that are well endowed with solid mineral resources. We should bring those solid minerals, just like we have brought oil to the budget. We should bring the solid minerals from other states of Nigeria into the picture.
Is that, what do members think about this?
Exactly what I'm saying.
Oh, okay. So if that were to happen, because it was only today, it was reported in the dailies that the government is asking the states to steer clear of some of these mineral resources and of those activities. So if that is if that's where the head of the government, the federal government is, that's quite far from what the members are thinking.
No, not at all. I think the thing is the same thing about bringing the solid minerals to the budget as the crude oil. What you find is that, and I mentioned it while I was speaking, that this has created a lot of security issues. You go to states and private individuals, solid mineral thieves, and then by some measure, a collaboration or a collusion of governments at different levels.
They collude with state governments at different levels?
No, not that. With these people who exploit the solid minerals and they don't account for it. For instance, I blame the exploitation of our gold resources or illegal exploitation of our gold resources for the security situation in Zamfara State. The pressure that security has, that the pressure on security in Niger State is not far from the issue of exploitation of our solid minerals. And if we don't check it decisively, it may spread to other states that are also endowed with mineral resources. What am I saying? The federal government is charged with being in charge of exploitation of these resources. They are getting concerned that the certain state governments are getting into it without coming to the line of fight. What simply that means is, if you are going to exploit, how much minerals you bring out from the ground will be known. Taxes on those minerals have to be paid, whether they are by private individuals, whether they're by state government, whether they're by other authorities. Because, for instance, if you check the tax, petroleum profit tax, it is up to 90% or even more than 90%. How much should somebody who exploits solid minerals pay for those? We don't even collect anything. People, just seize, an area, begin to exploit the resources there without accounting for it at all to the government. So the government gets nothing for the mineral endowments of such places and such locations.
So, can we continue to approach things this way? Because if you say you blame the security situation in Zamfara State to illegal mining, government has some details. We believe that might have been going on for a while. They've not been able to rein them in. So, does government then, federal government, do they have that capacity across board? We approach and try to see how do we change things? Because states keep telling you, look, if they are cautioning them to not interfere in the activities, it does suggest that states are thinking about doing something about it and not just leaving everything to the federal government.
Let me say this. When I say it, the exploitation of our solid minerals has created security issues, it is because it's a free-for-all. There's no regulation. Nobody's in charge. So people, different contesting groups.
There's the Ministry of Solid Minerals.
Yeah, but I am urging them to take charge, because groups, non-government actors, are seizing locations, seizing those enclaves, commandeering whatever is happening there, dictating what is happening there, exploiting the resources, cutting them away. Certain makeshift airports have been created or have been alleged to have been created around this inside this country, and people mine things, mine gold, and these things are just simply cutted away and they fly out. We have seen such. Why is it that these things can be possible? So different groups will come and say, okay, we own this place. So Nigeria is being is being controlled by different groups. We own this place and we're going to be exploiting the resources there. And nobody can come near. Government officials cannot come. Regulatory agencies can. They even now fight with the security operatives of government to continue to control those concessions and to continue to exploit the resources there. That's what I mean by that.
So what would you think about Naira redenomination if you were to be on the floor for some sort of debate? If the new strategic agenda for the Naira by the CBN, so if they say we want to redenominate the Naira to ensure that we're able to manage the currency, would that be one welcome idea that might fit into the request of the members?
Redenomination of the Naira is simply to control the cost of printing. Simply to control the cost of printing. Psychologically also, it will help to adjust the mindset of the Nigerians. Some time ago, 1 naira or $1 exchanged for 75 kobo. Less than 1 naira. Now, $1 exchanges for 1,000 naira. Now, that is mind-boggling. So, psychologically, it will help to even put us at the right frame of mind, that our currency has not become mere wallpaper. Now, but more than that, it will also control the cost of printing our denominations. Because for now, the cost of printing our denomination is more than the value of the denomination.
Yeah, that's just one of the many advantages they say that this will be, because convertibility of the naira, and then ensure effective liquidity and management of monetary policy, better anchor inflation expectations, strengthen public confidence in the naira, reverse tendency for currency substitution, and several others.
Bottom line is that if there is redenomination, if you are earning 30,000 naira, you may start earning 3,000 naira.
And then we'll be able to use coins more.
Yeah, then you can bring the coins to use it. So the quantity of money in circulation will reduce. The cost of printing will reduce. And then we can start a journey forward about the value of that new redenominated naira.
You think it will have an impact?
It will
on the
have
value of the currency.
Yeah, it will have an impact because there is a psychology of it. That you are taking a packet of money, a packet of Nigerian naira, and you are exchanging it with something that you can put in your front pocket.
So they say, look, if there is if a product costs 2,000 naira, since they're moving 20 to the left, it will now be 20 naira.
Yes.
So you have the option of, should I pay 2,000 naira or 20? Why should I be carrying 2,000 naira if I can just pay 20 naira note?
Exactly.
So
and gradually the old currency will have to.
But will we achieve much in terms of if we do not focus on production manufacturing?
Like I said when I was starting, all these are just house cleaning, if you may. House cleaning, because we have not started addressing the issue. The issue is about production. And may I say, I was only talking about the solid minerals. Next one, very critical, is agriculture. Agricultural production, government must handle it as a matter of emergency. I became excited a while ago when the president proclaimed a state of emergency on agricultural and food production. But I thought that they were going to match the pronouncement with action and with our purse, with budget. But I was surprised that when the issue of palliative administration came, they also started transferring money to states instead of using these monies to address the issue of commercial agriculture. My suggestion is this. Parts of this country should be mapped and designated areas of best fit for commercial production of flagship, what I call flagship agricultural produce. There are areas of this country that are very suitable for certain items of agricultural produce. For instance, cassava, for instance, maize, for instance, millet, wheat, vegetables, tomato, and all those things. There are areas of best fit. Even palm oil that can give you vegetable oil at the end of the day. So on and so forth. If the 2 billion naira that was recently given to state government, whose administration has become challenged, questioned, If 2 billion was given to the state government to clear land, and they actually use that 2 billion to clear a massive area of land, maybe up to 10 square kilometers, 20 square kilometers of land, which we have in this country, various places. When you clear about 20 square kilometers of land and you begin to implement the cultivation of a particular agricultural produce, you will create impact. Be it cassava, be it maize. Right now, we have a maize crisis because even the feeds, the human beings are now competing with poultry, with piggery,
Honorable,
with
if you
other
can, just one
animal
second.
husbandry.
Just 1 second, Honorable, if you can hear me.
Practitioners with...
Honorable, if you can hear me, just 1 second. I want to bring you back quickly to an issue that you mentioned the other time. Just 1 second, Honorable. You were talking about the Federal Ministry of Solid Minerals the other time, and you were talking about the implications of certain actions that were taken or not taken. But, you know, an extension to Chamberlain's question to you the other time is that the Minister of Solid Minerals was saying that the states have begun to ban mining activities across the country to a point, and as far as it's concerned, it's a constitutional matter. We have also been befuddled. A good number of people are wondering. The land is under the purview of the state governor. The mineral resources or deposits under that land belongs to the federal government. So now that it's a constitutional matter, if we are going to improve the economy or fix the economy, as you have said, and this issue, you have also seen the implications, seeing that these mineral deposits are in the states, what could be, for you, a solution or an intervention so that the federal government and the state governments can have a concourse of sorts about this particular issue of solid minerals? Because they are in the states, but they can't touch them legally because, according to the Constitution, it's under the purview of the federal government. So what do you think should be a middle ground?
Okay. Let me put a question back to you. Why don't we have this kind of confusion in the exploitation of our crude oil? Why? It is the confusion I am talking about. Why is it that federal government is saying states should not ban? Why is states having to ban? It is because they are trying to solve a security issue, which has been created because of free-for-all exploitation of solid minerals under their domain of administration. That is why. And I'm saying the federal government needs to step in and control these things. It is not to stop the exploitation. It is but to stop the free-for-all exploitation. Control what we are exploiting. Because, one, if people outside this country notices that in Nigeria it is you can mine gold without accounting for it, without being held responsible to anybody, without paying any tax or whatsoever, they will move to Nigeria. They will begin to control areas. Because they now know that just when you can, by force, control those areas, you can freely exploit those resources and cut them away. This should not be the case. That's just the bit about solid minerals. But I'm saying we have a whole lot of opportunities in agriculture.
We'll come back to agriculture in a moment, Honorable. We'll certainly come back to agriculture. But one of the things that's a little disturbing about what you said, I mean, when you compare with petroleum, of course, we know that they're miles apart because it's easier to just go underground and just dig a little, as we have seen in some of the videos that have been shown while you were speaking. But it's not the same for petroleum. You have to dig so very deep into the ground to get that one. But in terms of this intervention, you said that the federal government should come and intervene. But you also know that we have mineral deposits all over the country. I'm not sure whether or not we have the representation of the Ministry of Solid Minerals in every area in Nigeria where we have solid mineral deposits. So what kind of conversation, seeing it's not only a security matter, as you have highlighted, it's also a constitutional matter. Is there a constitutional intervention that you see? Do you see any opportunity, any chance that the Constitution could be adjusted or, edited in such a way, by the National Assembly, of course, in such a way as to accommodate the activities of the state governments in the mineral resources sector?
Okay. I believe that the Minister for Solid Minerals has his job cut out for him. Number two, the security agencies have their job in this particular respect cut out for them. It may become necessary, talking about the Constitution, to devolve the responsibility for exploitation of solid minerals down the line and not to centralize it. But before you do that, you have to know how much coal is in Enugu State. Where are the locations? And how much reserve of coal deposit do you have in those locations? Even if you want to ask the state now to control the exploitation of coal reserve in Enugu State, you have to know, federal government, how much is the reserve of coal, so that when they start exploiting, you know how much revenue, how much tax, how much remittances you are expecting from them for just that particular item. Now, talking about how easy it is to exploit the solid minerals in Nigeria. Maybe some of them are alluvial, some of them are very at surface levels. So it does not matter, because even the yam we cultivate, the cattle we carry around, they are not even buried under anything. They are on the surface. Everybody knows who owns what. So it shouldn't be a matter of, it is easy to exploit. Yes, I agree with you that, it may involve a lot of capital investment to exploit our oil. But don't forget that even the exploitation varies from place to place. There are some places where it is offshore, some places it is. But however it is, whether it is onshore or offshore, people are controlling the exploitation and are accounting for it. I am saying that we should know who owns what. If Nigeria owns the gold, Nigeria should control the gold, account for it, raise revenue from it, not exploitation of our gold resources or iron or mineral resources becoming a free-for-all. It doesn't happen anywhere in the world. And any item we find being produced in Nigeria is produced in other places. Any items that that is being produced not from a deep investment of capital investment, is being done elsewhere. How do those people do it? What are they doing? Why is our own getting out of hand? We should interrogate these things and make sure that our solid minerals are brought within the line of sight of our revenue generation in Nigeria. Okay.
Do you see also, by the way, the value, when you're talking about value the other time, the Minister of Solid Minerals, Mr. Dele Alake, while at UNGA in New York, put the total value, approximates the total value of Nigeria's mineral resources, the deposits that we have, to something in the region of $700 billion. If you divide that by 36, I guess your guess can be as good as mine. It's one of the reasons I don't like mathematics. But do you see a conversation between the federal government and the state governors in particular? What could, in your opinion, beyond trying to ensure and secure their states? Because something you said is very, very important. If we do not produce, we will continue to circle around this mountain that we have on our hands. And mineral deposits, as you have said, is fairly low-hanging fruit. Zamfara State has demonstrated it one way or the other. And we have quite a number spread in various states, all the 36 states of the country. What kind of role do you think, if the National Assembly goes by the line that you talked about, of adjusting the Constitution, what kind of role do you think the state governors can play? This question is advised because In the House of Representatives, every single one of you is from certain communities, and you know where the shoe pinches. So, and I also want to believe that you're having conversations with the governor of your state and with the members of the Houses of Assembly in your state. So what kind of intervention, what kind of role would you say the state governors themselves have to have in this particular matter to facilitate production that can help fix the economy?
The issue of resource control is core in our restructuring, in any scheme of restructuring in Nigeria. Resource control. But resource control can be done more in an organized manner, in a more organized manner. Everybody knowing what to do, your limits, where to pay the resources to. What is happening, the dangerous thing that is happening is when these resources fall into the hands of private individuals, non-governmental operators, and bandits. That is when the concern comes. Because then the resources leave the line of sight. We can no longer account for it. We can no longer use it for the good of the country. My state can be given to exploit coal, but they will pay tax to the federal government. Zamfara State can be given to exploit gold, but we have to know how much gold are they exploiting, are they mining, and how much tax will be due to the federal government. Even the resources that, even if it is the state government that is investing in it, how much is due to the state government, not to private individuals. Because the danger, what is happening that is wrong, is that these things fall into the hands of private individuals, non-state actors, and are exploiting natural resources of our country, and nobody accounts for it. That is the danger. So we can work it out. Everybody is even aspiring to restructuring to the point of resource control. But we now know that really and truly, resources exist every part of Nigeria. It exists in the south, it exists in the east, it exists up north. A lot of resources exist. So if resource control is being advocated, it should not be, nobody's going to be left behind. But Nigeria will be better for it. The center will be better for it. Because then anything you exploit, even in your own domain, within your own geographical domain, you have to pay something agreed to the center so that the Nigeria can be run with all those responsibilities that are centralized with the federal government.
Absolutely. Well, resource control is another age-long conversation. I guess it goes back to the National Assembly. But there's another issue talking about production so that can help us fix the economy. On the front page of the Daily Independent newspaper this morning, the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria are asking the federal government to overtake binding constraints limiting production. Is this one of the issues you would be taking up with the CBN and the Minister of, the Coordinating Minister of the Economy, if and when you invite them? Because on the floor, we also heard your colleagues calling for them to come and answer some questions. Add that to the fact of whether or not the House of Representatives has conducted any form of research that would aid them in taking on issues with these gentlemen that you are trying to invite.
Okay, now talking about binding constraints. We are House of Representatives. A lot of people draw from different professions. I am saying that the issue of binding constraints for militating against manufacturing and production in Nigeria is everybody's business. I am an accountant. I'm a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria. The ICANN conference is going on right now. On the first day of the conference, it was this same issue of alignment of taxation, binding constraints, things that inhibit production, investment in Nigeria that occupied the discussion on the first day. A lot was said. Very intelligent conclusions were reached. The government should be interested. And the president also delivered an address, an opening speech to declare the conference open. And he said that he is going to stay close and monitor the outcomes, his communique from that conference. It should go from just merely saying it to now doing it. Let him go and get the conclusions from such conferences. And such conferences are going on in other professional bodies around this country. And the talking is not scarce in Nigeria. The conclusions, the papers are not scarce in Nigeria. But let the government develop the staying power, the ability to follow up on these things and convert conclusions or decisions reached in some of these bodies to concrete implementations by government, which is their responsibility. So even we in House of Reps may not be the most qualified to talk about the binding constraints. But bodies like ICANN, they are tackling it head on. Now it is being discussed. I was there, I participated in that opening ceremony. And papers were presented, discussions were had, conclusions were reached. We should follow up on these things and make sure that we begin to bring them to policy making. And of course, we will utilize information we get from such discussions in our deliberations in the parliament.
All right, and a good place to anchor. Honorable Dennis Agbo, member of the Labour Party and a member of the 10th House of Representatives. Thank you very much indeed for your time here today.
Thank you.
All right, we will be back in just a moment. Stay on with us.
Before, we used to talk about the gap that exists between rich countries with access to internet, with access to mobile technology. But the price for these technologies is dropping significantly, which means a lot of our people will have access to it. And as they have access to it, the question will then be whether they have the knowledge to be able to use it. And if you're unsure of why digital literacy is absolutely crucial, imagine for those of us with parents who are probably 50 and above. Today, we're mainstreaming the use of digital banking, for instance, as one of the ways to bank. Today, many people are learning online. What will happen to these people if they don't have the knowledge and the know-how to be able to use this technology? They'll be cut out of it. And by being cut out of it, it decreases the ability of our economy to actually be strong. Because if the quality of the people in the nation is low, the complexity of the nation is going to be low, which means the products and services that people are able to consume will also be low as well. So for us to drive the prosperity that we actually want to see in our economy, it is important that people are digitally literate. By being digitally literate, it means that as the innovators help to diversify our economy, as they come up with solutions that can increase productivity, that the average person in our economy can actually participate and use this solution. It is important because when we achieve it, we have a more prosperous Nigeria, and we can help lift a lot more of our people to where they should be.
All right, welcome back. Yes, Dr. Bosun Tijani joins us next. He is the Minister of Communications, Innovation and Digital Economy. Good morning, and thank you for coming on today. It's a new ministry. Of course, lots of people are excited about this in terms of what to expect. So they're looking to see how is this going to go? How will the structure be? What should we expect? How can they connect? And what kind of impact will it have on the country? So all of those questions are out there. But maybe we should start this way. So at the end of your tenure, whenever that is going to be, tell us, what do you have in mind? What do you want to leave behind? It's like building a house. What kind of house should we expect?
Well, that's a complex question. But again, to point out that it's not a new ministry. It's a ministry that has been around, I think, since 2011. Mobola Johnson was the first minister. Then we've had 2 other ministers after that. But it's been...
I was thinking about Blue Corner.
But it's been growing tremendously. I think it's the sector that we represent is actually an interesting sector that I believe Nigeria should be interested in. Last quarter, that sector contributed over 18% GDP. You can see that it's significant access. Your question in terms of what would I like to see at the end of my 4 years term in office, I think is to see Nigeria as a net exporter of technology talent, a destination in the world for technology talent. That's the base of what we need. Because digital technology is a major part of how we all live our lives today. Everywhere you look, there's technology around you. But the question we're not asking is, who are those building this technology? And we're in a prime position, very prime position, because most of the countries in the West are countries with declining population, but also aging population as well, which means they won't have the workforce to actually power this phenomenon that is all around us. But the interesting thing about Africa and Nigeria is in Africa, the population of the continent of over 1.2 billion people, 40% of that are young people. It becomes a lot more interesting when you bring it to Nigeria. 60% of that population are young people. And you know our population is also projected to keep growing significantly. So as against seeing that population as a burden is actually one of our biggest strengths right now, is a big asset, because we have the unique opportunity to power the world when it comes to it. And this is not just something we're making up. It's already been done. In the last 10 years, we've seen what this sector has been doing. I mentioned how it contributed 18%, just one sector, to the economy last year. In the last 10 years, we've seen significant companies coming out of Nigeria, whether it's Flutterwave, is now all over Africa and extending beyond that. They just opened in India recently, or Paystack, or Lifebank, and Della. There's a ton of these companies that have started in the last 10 years. Also, even larger companies like MTN, Glo, Airtel, making Nigeria one of their biggest markets in the world. IHS, which is one of the largest infrastructure companies within the telecommunication space in the world, one of the top 5 in the world, started out of Nigeria. So we're actually on that path. But what we need to do now that we have a unique opportunity with a president that is pro-business is to literally pitch our tent and say we know our position in the world. And the way we want to do that is to be the net exporter of technology talent. And there's a reason for that.
We'll come to some of your strategic agenda soon. But do we, from your perspective, think we have, let me not use the word sufficient, do we have that kind of platform such that it's not happenstance or individuals who just think, look, I just want to go into this? Are we deliberate about this in terms of that foundation?
I think we have the foundation. We have the foundation. What we need to do is to be a lot more intentional in leveraging the foundation. Raw materials, which are people, that is required for this. For technology, for you to drive technology is about know-how and talent, the workforce. And we have that. Whether it's at home or abroad, our people are doing fantastically well all over the world. The question is, how do we connect the bridge to ensure these people can contribute to the development of the nation? But for those that are here as well, how do we leverage the investment that we've done? I need to make it clear that when we talk about connectivity and internet, Nigeria is one of the few countries in Africa with 7 submarine cables. Submarine cables are the actual cable that carries internet all over the world. This investment has been done to bring this cable all the way from places like Portugal and part of Europe to Lagos. The investment we now need to do is to ensure that it's everywhere in the country in form of fiber. And once we do that, the quality of connectivity, calls, and everything that we need to use will go up significantly. It's going to also become cheaper. It's also about providing opportunity for young people who want to learn to be able to learn. And government has been doing that over the years. When I assumed office, what I did was I took stock of all the innovation spaces. These are community spaces that we've invested. There's over 2,500 of them all over the country. So my goal is to ensure that these spaces are not just there, but they are used optimally, that we can open them up for young people who want to learn, for them to learn. And in communities where we do not have them, ensure that we can invest in them, because these spaces are platforms for serendipity. You mentioned whether we have the platform. It is there. The investment is there. Our people are eager to learn. And this is why the plan that we released a few days ago is focused on the foundation of it is knowledge. As much as we understand that technology is going to help leapfrog development in the country, as much as we understand that for our sectors, different sectors, whether it's agriculture, transportation, education, to be more competitive and also more productive, we have to apply technology. We understand all of that, but the foundation of that is knowledge. And when we say knowledge, you know, we talked about training 3 billion people.
Yeah.
These 3 billion people are lives. That's the way we're looking at them. We consider them to be individuals. If our interventions actually get to these people, we can change this country for good. Because when we empower our people, we have a unique opportunity to turn things around.
And I see the 1 million technical talent training co-creation report, which, as you referred to, was launched just a couple of days ago, and wherein you talked about how it came about, groups of people who came together. And I see that in that page where you talk about recognizing system and infrastructure gaps, you identify the gaps.
Absolutely.
And also simultaneously proposing solutions for closing identified gaps. You listed several other areas, from knowledge, unclear skill path, cultural barriers, and then these cultural barriers, just simultaneously, the solution proposed here is creation of clear pathways from beginner to professional levels should be included in the framework.
Absolutely.
There should also be simple pathways for non-technical talents in the workforce and gig workers who want to acquire technical skills. Now, in responding to this, could you just add that to the bit where you identified educational system lapses, outdated curriculum, and unskilled educators further weaken the system? We talk about some of these challenges time and again, how we think, we've looked at several data, McKinsey reports inclusive, which suggest in a couple of, if not a decade or thereabout, a huge percentage of our curriculum in this country, in the world, in fact, will be obsolete.
Absolutely.
We need to think about the future. So now you also talk about collaboration with state and academia. Talk us through what we expect from this.
I think what to consider is that the shape of education in itself has been changing globally. This is not unique to just Nigeria. You know, the education system, the way it's been structured in the past, is not moving fast enough along the line of the technologies that we now use and how that technology is shaping the future of work, the kind of employees that you need, the expectations from them as well. So I'll give it as an example. For our sector, all over the world, companies as big as Google, Meta, Microsoft now recruit people without a formal certificate. So in some of these companies, you actually don't have to go to a formal university. And I'm not preaching that people shouldn't, because I have a PhD, so that's why I believe strongly in formal education system. But the reality is it's moving away from certification to skill. It's about, can you be an engineer, can you be a software developer? And these things are now possible without going to the top university. That's what technology has done to us, because the contents are available online, which means people can learn right from the comfort of their homes. You can download some of this content, learn on your own practice, because technology in itself is cheap. You can buy your own computer, you can buy several hardwares to build things. And as you do that, you get better. And because companies today are just companies who make stuff, they are looking for makers, not just people with certificate. And what that means is a lot more young people today are getting well-paid jobs without even being into an academic institute. You see someone who's learned how to code online, in 6 months to 12 months, they can go from not having a job to having a job in Nigeria that pays anywhere from $350K and above as an entry-level software engineer, because this is the market that we live in. So we need to balance that with the formal education. I'm a big fan of formal education. I think it has its own strong value that it brings to society. It's not just about training people, but also generating new knowledge, helping society to see how to do things differently. So I'm not one of those who advocates that, we're going to disrupt formal education. But I think as we go about trying to update and fix the lapses, I think the opportunity that technology offers is that we can also leapfrog education without necessarily focusing too much on.
I belong to the school of thought. I like to see the glasses half full, not half empty. So when I think about some of these things, and I also remember that there are several industries, different sectors, including mine, where we don't manufacture the components in that sector. So for this, much as huge software potential, but I'm also thinking what your thought is concerning the hardware component in this sector. And when I think about that, I think about challenges we have to face, overcome. Power, consistent source of that. The social circle, the human capital, that all have to be on the same page with you to a very large extent to ensure that this happens. And by the way, 3 million, that's ambitious. So what's your mindset about that?
So let me take it from start to the last point, which is about the ambition of the 3 million. So again, I think I like your description or analogy of half glass half empty. Because the reality, that's not just you being, optimistic. It's the fact. In Nigeria, we have the capability to produce hardware. We all talk about Aba, for instance, and the powerhouse that it is when it comes to innovation. Right? Aba is known to produce things that are consumed all over Africa. People come to buy from Aba. But what we've not done enough of in Aba is actually to leverage and add more resources to what's being done there. Can we bring modern technology into how things are being done there? Can we intentionally train talent for hardware to empower the folks who work in that area? Perhaps can we be more innovative around how we direct investment to locations like that? You have Alaba in Lagos as well. You have Computer Village in Lagos. These are pockets of excellence when it comes to hardware knowledge and hardware technology. And part of what we're doing, and we're doing this actually trying to look into partner with NDDC, right? Starting with Aba. We're bringing some of the top minds that we know that are from Nigeria, but they've been working in hardware together to actually craft a path for how we invest in what is happening in Aba. Our ambition is that in the next couple of months into next year, that we can actually set up a center in Aba that is focused on hardware production when it comes to tech. But that center is not just going to be there to duplicate what's been done. The center is going to focus on building new technology, exposing the business people in that region to how they can leverage new technology to do what they already do better, but also then groom and train a lot of talent that can support these businesses to use modern technology to do what they do. So that's the way we're looking at hardware. We know that Nigeria is a viable market. Over 220 million people. If you start proper hardware company backed by research in Nigeria and you scale successfully, then you have the whole of Africa under the single market, over 1.2 billion people. That is your market. And Global South as well, there's so many countries that we can still target. So we do recognize this, and that's why we're doing that investment. And in terms of the 3 million people, and whether it's realistic, it is realistic. You know what we've done? So because we're conscious of two things. The first is that this 3 million, we're talking about real lives. So these are not just random people. No, honestly, if we do our work well, these are people that will lift. If we don't do it well, these are people that may miss the opportunity to be lifted and wait for another government in 4 years. So we're quite conscious of the fact that these are lives. The second thing is that we're going to be spending taxpayers' money in trying to uplift these people, even though we're working with a lot of partners that will also invest for society. So we came up with a model that we called 1 to 10 to 100, which is 1%, 10%, 100%. And what we're doing with that, and you're going to see from tomorrow, actually Friday, where we're launching our first set of program on this talent development initiative, which is going to start first in the first 3 months, which is from tomorrow for the next 3 months. We're going to focus on 1% of that 3 million. That's 30,000. And you're going to see in the document that we're going to release tomorrow, we've scaled the 30,000 across all the 36 states in the country, including federal capital territory. And by the time we did that, then it became so easy to do, because if you divide that, then you start to see that in Abia, maybe all you need to train in the next 3 months, it's just 500 people. And we have different skill set that we still need to train them about. So when you break it down, it's actually quite tiny. And when we learn quickly in that first 3 months how to do that efficiently, our goal is to scale it immediately to 10% of the 3 million, which is 300,000. Again, if you scale that down across the different states, it becomes something that is easy to eat. Yoruba boy, we always say that, you start eating eko from the flat part, or momo, the one they put in the leaf. You start first from the flat part. You get that. As you get that, you get into the big thing. And that's how you don't eat elephant also, just all at once. And that's the strategy we're taking. So we actually formulated this framework, which is 1%, 10%, 300%. So when we do the 1% in 3 months, in the next 12 months, we're scaling to 300,000, which is 10%, to reach that target. And as we learn how to truly support and train and ensure that these people can find jobs, 300,000 across the country, then after 12 months, we can scale to our target by 36 months to try and reach 36 million. In technology or engineering, this is agile development. That's what we call it. But it's a way of reducing the cost of quality. That we're not just saying we want to train 3 million people just to excite the populace, just to get people happy. We want to truly train 3 million people. You know, if we train 3 million Nigerians in technical skills, if just 20% of them actually end up becoming an engineer, you will feel the significant impact in this country. Significant.
And several things, you know, coming to my head on this one, how corporate organizations can leverage on this, tertiary institutions, how they could become a hub to churn out some of these things if town meets gown. And then key to part of your scaling is your collaboration with states.
Absolutely.
How are you approaching that?
No, I think we're also quite fortunate. I've been speaking to quite a number of governors and commissioners of science and technology. You know, some states do have them in digital economy, matching exactly what we do. And all the states are quite excited, and they all appreciate and recognize the importance of the digital economy. All of them across the country. I was in Imo State with Governor Hope, you know, I think 2 weeks ago. And if you see the significant amount of investment that is actually made in the youth of that state, you know, they've given them significant number of computers, I think over close to 15,000 or thereabout. And they've trained all of these people. So they have the tools and the foundations to be able to do it. Our job is to ensure that there are job opportunities for them. And that's why, for me as a minister, it's been profound to see the impact of producing a strategic blueprint and putting it out there. Because what I've seen with the strategic blueprint is alignment. All the large technology companies in the world are talking to us. You know, they want to see how they can help. They're aligning with the strategy. This morning alone, I've had 2 people from France, because there's a publication in the newspaper in France on the strategic blueprint, and they want to partner. You know, one of them is on job opportunities because, like I said, they're looking for technical talent. But when you have a clear vision, it's a lot easier for people to come behind it. And, you know, for me, for my background, I'm not here, you know, because I enjoy being in office. This is what I've done for the last 14 years. You know, building off the technology ecosystem in Nigeria from Yaba, doing that, moving to places like Kenya, where we have office in Nairobi, in Kigali, in Namibia. So I've seen the power of a well-supported program and what it can do to a lot of young people. There are so many Nigerians that have benefited from the work that has happened in Yaba, where I go all over the world, I see young Nigerians in technology places. All of them started off from basic opportunities in places like Yaba.
And this, I mean, the potential is limitless in terms of how we can leapfrog, part of what we highlighted in our opening sequence on the program as well. But I'm going to go to my colleague in Lagos, Ayo, who's got questions for you as well.
Well, thank you so much, Chamberlain. Good to see you again, Dr. Tijani. The last time we spoke here in this studio, you were trying to import knowledge into Nigeria. So good thing that you've been doing. But, you know, my line of questioning will be along sustainability of these initiatives. So some of the questions that Chamberlain was asking you, I keep, you know, running through it in my head. When you say you want to bring up 3 million, let me first of all protest on behalf of the older people that they also may be interested in technology. Just a few days ago, I think it was over the weekend, we were talking about the World Older People's Day, something like that, an international day to call attention to the concerns of old people. Well, the reason for that really is that I saw a video circa 10 years ago where old people in China were being taught Mandarin, I beg your pardon, were being taught to code using the local language. And that was, for me, you know, quite profound. So that's why I'm saying I'm protesting on their behalf. In that same vein, speaking about how we can, if possible, use local languages if it is something in our thinking to do. Chamberlain gave some very staggering statistics the other time where we were opening, as he mentioned to you, that by 2050 or thereabout will be a population of about 700 or thereabout million people. And a good number of them will be young, a good number of them will be old as well. So is this something in consideration, part of your plan anywhere remotely or closely, to adopt some of these initiatives you're talking about in our local languages so that more than just the youths certainly, but more than just the youths can benefit from it, including those who are not so literate?
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. And I think I'm well known to be a champion of inclusion, by the way. I think there was a video that I was playing just before we started the conversation where I was talking about the need for us to ensure that as we invest in this drive to ensure that the larger part of our population are digitally literate, that we do not leave certain group of people behind. And I'm not just talking about people that may be challenged physically. I actually spoke about age. So even in the past, I've done projects focused on ensuring that we can actually train people from 55 and above. And I've seen some of these people. In one particular case, a gentleman that we trained about 6 years ago in cybersecurity. He actually became a cybersecurity expert at about 56 years old. So I do understand the power of inclusion. And that's why we do have a program in that plan that is called Digital Literacy. And what we're doing with digital literacy is onboarding people that may not have even the foundation and understanding of how to use technology. Because we know that the younger people are digital natives. So by nature, these are people that are conversant with technology, and they will always be excited about it. So we see them as workforce that we can drive. But the older folks as well, we see their power, and that's where I talk about the complexity of our economy. If you don't have an economy where people, everyone generally is interested and, a large population of people have that understanding of technology, your complexity will be low, and it's going to affect the product and services that you also have to offer in the country. So it is a priority under our plan. We have a program called Digital Literacy, where we expect, I think the plan is that by 2030, 90% of Nigerians should be digitally literate. But what we then get with that, digital literacy doesn't mean you become a technical talent, but it gives you the foundation to be able to choose that you also want to participate in the digital economy. So that's something we're also taking quite seriously. And to answer your question on language, if you check the plan, we're also quite keen on how we ensure that Nigeria can become a leader and participate actively in the artificial intelligence development, because this is where technology is now being, biased, especially when your own language and reality is not taken into consideration. And one of the things we're doing there is actually supporting projects and initiatives that can ensure that all languages in Nigeria are also included in the AI drive, so that the machines can recognize all the languages. And we're not talking about the popular ones, which is Yoruba, Hausa, and Igbo. We're actually, I think Microsoft also is interested in this. This is a project they've been working on for a while. We're actually talking about all the languages that people may not even pay, good attention to as important language. So this is something that is quite key and important to the agenda that we've put out.
Absolutely. When unconfirmed records say we have something in the region of 500 languages in the country, I wonder how you're going to handle that. But still talking about sustainability, one of the dailies that we've reviewed this morning said that Nigeria has lost about $77 billion to about 568 local service providers that have gone moribund in about 5 years. They cut across ISPs, VAS providers, vendors, tower companies, fixed and fixed wireless telecom, and all of that. So I'm wondering if this is something you are aware of, and if, because you say you want to create more businesses in the tech sector. I am excited about that. But and you have also spoken about those that have done well so far. You've mentioned the Flutterwaves and the rest of them that have done well and are doing well, and that's good. But then we also know from this report that about 568 local service providers have since gone under, leading to a loss of about $77 billion. Please think on that a little. We'll take a short break, and we'll be back for you to answer it. Just stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. Dr. Bosun Tijani is still with us. He is Minister of Communications, Innovation, and Digital Economy. So please go ahead and answer the question if you remember it.
I think it's an important one, and sadly, the world has been quite a lot in the last 3 years. I think we shouldn't forget that. COVID came with strong implications for economies globally. I think many governments manage to introduce some sort of palliative to keep their economies going. But, eventually palliatives would not necessarily keep all businesses in place, sadly, with economic downturn. But I think we're gradually coming out of it. I think what you're going to see at the end of the year, especially for the sector that I represent, and now that we're, again, extremely fortunate to have a pro-business government in place, what you're going to see is the use of policy, not just as a regulatory tool that may end up stifling, but the use of policy to open up the economy more for technology companies to actually build locally. Build locally, build some of the solutions that we want to see, again, so that we can stop importing too heavily. It's not going to be something that we will achieve in 1 year or two, but we want to set the foundation to diversify our economy, to strengthen our ability to produce, and improve the chances of us not relying on importation. Because part of the challenge for companies as well is because of the economic downturn, they've had to rely on importation, and we all know what the implication of that is to their own bottom line and also the nation as well, because the government constantly is always looking to balance the flow of foreign exchange. As we all know it. So that's a big challenge that obviously that we need to move away from. And one of the ways we can do it is to strengthen our local economy, strengthen the ability of people to produce, encourage more technology companies to be able to build and do business. And we have no doubt that, sadly, we lost some of these companies in the last few years. We also know that within that last few years as well, we've seen significant growth of some of our local technology companies. But we want to see much more, and that we will do through policy.
Well, perhaps it's also another, speaking in that same vein, and I'm glad that you mentioned that we want to stop importation. The question then is how, and which is why I keep talking about sustainability. A study, commissioned by one of the agencies under your ministry, the Nigeria Communications Commission, shows that 84% of hardware used in the sector is foreign. They also put the current level of local content on software in the telecoms industry at 23% for local and 77% for foreign software manufacturers. So if we want to domesticate these things in the country, I know that that there are some challenges. What are these challenges? And in terms of the hardware, what are the things that we need to have in country to ensure not just that we start it, but that we can also sustain it long term?
No, I think we've seen great companies actually also in the hardware space and manufacturing tools and materials that are used. I think Secure ID is one great example, for instance, that you can point to. The challenge with hardware manufacturing is that it's an ecosystem issue. As a single company, it's not sufficient for you to invest in the manufacturing capability to be able to deliver on hardware in a country like Nigeria. You need multiple other companies that are providing different services, but also talent as well that can help you do that. You must have the ability to be able to even maintain your machines and production, setup effectively without relying on foreign expertise to do that. And I think that's what I mentioned earlier that we're conscious of. Let's start with places like Aba, the manufacturing hub that is there, in places like, Computer Village, all the exciting things that they're doing there. How do we build an ecosystem around them? How can governments be intentional about investing money into those locations whereby certain expertise and resources that they require, they don't have to always go out of the country to get them, that we also actively invest in talent. So this is not just something we're talking about. It's something that is in our plan. We are going to see us going strong on this initiative, working with the right MDAs also that may be linked to some of these activities. But we're not just doing it as government, where you will see that the approach that I've taken is to co-create the path to most of these things. Government shouldn't just be the one fully leading it. Government should enable it with policy where necessary, invest. Or if we carry the players along, it becomes a lot easier for us to understand their pains and challenges. And that's the approach we're taking. And you're going to see a lot of that from the way people start to look at I mentioned this at an event in Lagos yesterday. The technology sector in Nigeria is quite significant. I think, if we contributed 18% to the GDP, it's an indication of the opportunities that is there that we need to take advantage of. But for us to do that, we have to be intentional again about raising the local content element of that. NITDA has produced some sort of guideline to increase local content participation in this space. It starts with us in government. It starts with me as a minister to work with the other ministries to ensure that we actually drive that. As we start to talk about digitalization of government services, how do we ensure that we don't end up importing the technologies and the softwares that will power this digitalization, that we actually build the Nigerian stack, which is the foundation that allow for innovation to thrive, that will allow local companies to be able to participate, but doing so with clarity around the quality that we must get, because raising local content shouldn't force us to take lower quality, which is the biggest challenge in technology as well. You want the best solution, so companies will compete from all over the world. So it is our job to also ensure that local companies can also meet the quality and expectation that we need to see, so that they don't become substandard, and by the time you're doing procurement, you don't have a choice but to go with larger foreign companies. I think this is what we're building as ecosystem, and we believe that in the coming months and years, it'll become a lot stronger for the country, and we'll start to see the value.
So many questions to ask you, Dr. Tijani, because, I mean, this particular sector is one I'm personally passionate about because of the potential it has to create employment and to help young people to sustain themselves. And one field in which young people have played in recent time is cryptocurrency. And of course, we seem to have been creeping into the blockchain tech. I'm not sure how strongly you think we have done in that regard. But cryptocurrency, it will sound like, well, it sounded that in the previous government, the CBN was very, very iffy and very, very cautious of it. What's your take on these two, blockchain tech and cryptocurrency, especially for and in Nigeria?
No, absolutely. I think blockchain as a technology has tremendous potentials with its application beyond just currency and a means of driving exchange. It can be used in health in significant ways. It can be used even within the legal system in managing data. So there's no question about that. If you look at our strategic plan, it's one of the technologies that we're prioritizing. In fact, we want Nigeria to be top 25 percentile when it comes to blockchain technology in the world. We have a strategy for that, which is well articulated. But coming to cryptocurrency, I think the biggest challenge with cryptocurrency, and not just for Nigeria, but all over the world, is that the way it's been built so far is quite strong in supporting opportunities for individuals while ignoring sovereignty of nations, right? This is a fantastic means of exchange that almost proposes a new way of bypassing existing formal system. It serves the individual really well, which is fine. But what we need to be conscious about in Africa is that we're still building our nation states, right? And not everyone will be on crypto, but what will happen to those who are not enlightened enough to be on crypto? But beyond also being on crypto, if a system threatens your sovereignty and you don't have a clear understanding of how to manage it, do we say to ourselves that we do not need a nation to be able to support everything that we want to see? So my approach to crypto is actually saying there's a need for both the users, the producer, but also government to have a significant understanding of how to work with it. It's a fantastic opportunity, but we must understand its implication for our sovereignty as a nation. How do we manage it such that it doesn't compromise our sovereignty as a nation, but also use it in such a way that it can provide opportunities and benefit for our people as well? We've been able to demonstrate the value for people, which is great, but I think we've not been able to understand how best to manage it for sovereignty of the country as a nation.
What if I could get back to your document here? Under the proposed component of the training framework, I see where you talk about financial schemes.
Absolutely.
And part of that includes tax incentives. You're going to offer tax breaks to companies that hire talents from the training pool. Is this in place now? How is it in place?
No, it's not in place. Again, that was proposed by the companies we brought together. This is not a government proposition. This is what the companies are proposing, that perhaps if we offer this is what we get. So we still need to work with the right part of government to understand how that will work. I think it's been done in quite a number of climes where you encourage, but at the same time, we need to build this in such a way that it's not abused, right? Because at the end of the day, it's not about giving tax incentive to companies for the fun of it. It's about ensuring that our people are actually put into jobs. And when we do that appropriately, the people will earn and they'll still pay tax. So it will balance out eventually. But we need to work out that framework. That's the proposition that we've gotten.
And what we've seen over time is that these kind of things, developments, they usually go faster than the laws.
Absolutely.
So how are you working to ensure that we have enabling laws so that people are coming in, they're protected?
Yeah. So in our plan, we've built something in that we call the sandbox. And what the sandbox does is to allow you to build technologies that policies and regulations may not be very clear about. So instead of you saying, no, you can't build it, the sandbox will give you an environment to be able to build it. So what we will do as government is as you build, we're learning from it because it's a controlled environment. We're learning from it. And by learning from it, we can decide whether certain policies and regulation needs to be changed or updated. And that's the best way you can become a proactive government as well, because you cannot, in technology, you can't envisage enough everything that is coming. But when you create an environment for it to happen anyways, you're still in control in a way without stopping innovation to happen. So that's what we're doing.
So speaking about how people can come in, because I know that there's several people who may be listening thinking, okay, sounds interesting. How can I jump in? So I'm looking at now the second document, Accelerating Our Collective Prosperity Through Technical Efficiency. NIPOST. We all know the story of NIPOST in this country, which one agency under you. What do we expect in terms of change and the future NIPOST?
We again, great recognition of the work that the outgoing Postmaster General has done. But we also, the President announced a new PMG yesterday. So my personal plan, which I hope that we can get to work together on with NIPOST, is that NIPOST is a fantastic opportunity for us to create jobs. Because this is an institution with almost 5,000 thereabout outlets across the country. It has significant assets that is well positioned, right? But we know the story of NIPOST. But this government is quite keen on turning that around. I've mentioned this before. Imagine if we turn each of those locations into franchise, where a small business can apply to government to run one outlet, right? And the way it's done, a government would have a clear prescription of how it has to be managed, what needs to be done in there, the activities that needs to happen. And this small business can actually effectively manage it and hire 5, 10 people locally within that region to do the last mile delivery. But the center also, adding technology to it, can now become a place where you go for your government services. It can become a place where you actually go for financial services if there's no bank close to you. It can become a place where you go for information. It can become a mini, small, supermarket where you can buy convenient stuff as well. So there's so much economy that we can create around the NIPOST, and that's my personal wish. I've discussed this with Mr. President as well. It's sold that this is the direction we should be going, but I'm looking forward to working with the new PMG to make it happen.
Yeah, it will be very interesting because, we've seen what USPS became after many people thought it was going obsolete, but now they're back on stream and they're grossing quite a lot. So that template is there for us all to see. But in terms of the tertiary institutions, which I mentioned in passing in the opening, what do you expect? How are you working with them? Because we also know that they could play a very key role across the country with this.
Yeah, they could, and they have been. We talk down our education system a lot. I think they've been, the power. I started my education life at tertiary level from University of Jos, and that's where I became really passionate about technology. Yeah, I've had the chance to travel abroad, study abroad, but my passion and interest in technology for development, not just technology, came from being part of University of Jos. Our intention is to work quite closely with them. Again, if you look at that plan, there's an element of the knowledge aspect that speaks to research. Because we understand that you cannot become a leader if you're also not investing in knowledge generation. It's not only about applying existing knowledge, it's about contributing to the body of knowledge that is out there. So we're prioritizing that. Again, tomorrow, one of the programs that we're launching is actually focused on research in AI, where we're looking for 45 research consortia. So you have a company that will partner with a local researcher, and hopefully we're encouraging them to also find a foreign researcher that they can partner with. And they can put together a proposal on the application of artificial intelligence in Nigeria. How do we start to apply? And we're looking to fund 45 of that. But we're not just going to fund them to come up with new ideas. Part of what we want to see is they must publish. because the measure of knowledge generation is publication in academic journals.
Yeah.
So we're actually helping them to also ensure we can engage journals where they can publish. If we fund the 45, they'll come up with innovations that the company can apply. That innovation may end up adding significant value to the economy, create jobs, but at the same time, we're going to end up with at least 45 academic publications. That's significant for Nigerians.
That would definitely be a huge basis. But just one more thing before we go, and I also mentioned this industry where almost everything is imported. Yeah. We don't manufacture any of those facilities here. And we know the future can be bright, very encouraging if at the end of the day we develop and ensure that some of those items we import is manufactured here. That's the future.
Yeah. It is the future, and it's something I'm passionate about. I know this, I've seen the pain. You know, before joining government, I started building something called STEM Cafe, which is Maker Lab for young people. This is a place where young people from the age of 5 can go into, and they can make stuff. There's 3D printer in there, there's Arduino kits, Raspberry Pi, and all sort of things where they can make. So I do appreciate that. And I think I'm fortunate to be in this position as well. You know why? I have a president that is extremely supportive. No, I have to say this, and I'm not saying this as a plug. I have a president that is extremely supportive. I have a vice president that has shown interest in supporting me to ensure that I can get my work done as much as possible. I'm going to put my best into it, and let's see. You know, with the support of God, I think we're onto something in this country. Oh,
yeah, so that's why I started out saying, look, as you might have heard now, the glass certainly is half full. So it's a matter of time before we just hit the heights, which we already hit it anyway. We just want to take it a little higher. We'd like to thank you for coming on and encourage you to keep up the good work.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Bosun Tijani is the Minister of Communications, Innovation and Digital Economy. All the best to you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, guys, that is the show today. We do thank you all for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow. I am Train Balonoso. Goodbye.
Kenneth, Festus Akimboyewa, Professor Nakena, Ademola Lalade, and a host of other people, thank you so much for your messages. Truly appreciate them. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I'm Aya Makinde. Bye for now.